At one stage, I didn't think this thing was going to go live because the little thing kept spinning and spinning and spinning, probably twice as long as it usually does. Then eventually I got the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing. So I know we're live again. So once again, welcome to another reading from the Science of Mind magazine, the Daily Guides. The ones of you who live in this part of the world will realize that today we're going through a huge change. And the subject is about change. I mean, the whole article today is about change. And today is a dramatic example of how nature changes, because this morning I was awakened to the sounds of thunder and a lot of noise and rain. And then it just seemed to rain forever. And it rained for a long, long time. In fact, I talked to 3 people on the phone who said that their rain gauges measured 7 inches, which is an awful lot. I mean, that's kind of huge. You know, it's like 20 centimeters or something. It's a lot of rain. And now it's as if nothing ever happened. My wife and I were obviously cooked up in the house for a good part of the day. And then when finally it cleared up, we were able to go to the bank and just do transaction business there. And it's like nothing had ever happened. Though, yeah, you could see around about where it rained, but the sun was shining, it was clear blue sky. I mean, it was just a complete change from what it was this morning. And it's sort of ironic that the whole thing today is about change, called the changers and the changed, the changers and the changed. All that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is changed. The only lasting truth is change. The divine is change. And that was Octavia Butler. Who is she? Well, if you wait a minute, you're going to find out. Because save me looking her up. Ernest Holmes says, "We do not see a visible world that seems to change. And if we do, how is it that it could come from something that never changes?" And that's actually on page 72 of the Science of Mind textbook. And if I go to page 72, which I meant to do before I started, I apologize. Here we are, page 72. And it says in here, I'm looking at the context here. Well, we're going to look it up later. Anyway, bottom line is that in some respects, you can see that the divine never changes in that it encompasses everything. But in another sense, it absolutely has to change, because if the divine is expressing through everything in creation, and everything in creation is changing, then the divine changes. So some philosophies say God is changeless, or the divine is changeless. But it can't be, because everything that's expressed is an expression of the one source. And if everything that the one source expresses changes, then by definition, the one source itself also changes. And this is what our writer this month continues to say. She says, "On a recent road trip, I listened to a series of webinars hosted by Afrofuturist writer Tananarive Due and religion professor Monica A. Coleman. The webinar series is, quote, Octavia Tried to Tell Us, unquote, and it focuses on the life and ideas of Octavia Butler, an author of speculative fiction, an Afrofuturist, and an overall human powerhouse." So what is Afrofuturism? Well, I did look it up, and it's got several different definitions. It looks like it's been around for about 30 years. And it's looking at the future through an African perspective, or an African or Afro-American, Afro-African lens. And it's often applied to science fantasy, science fiction, and these sort of changes. But look it up if you want. It's an interesting subject, Afrofuturism. And we continue with our writer this month. They say, I beg your pardon, I'm mixing my pronouns up. They say, the profound conversation weaved its way to a topic we all have a love-hate relationship with: change. The webinar participants discussed the static colonizer mindset of changing individuals, the world, even systems and frameworks, without a willingness to also be changed by their own experience of those things. Simply put, we want others to be changed without actually being changed ourselves. How often do we do that? How often do you do that? How often do we all do that? And how often do we collectively do that? I've got comments on this. The reality is this, that every interaction, every situation, every circumstance, every, quote, something that is happening way over there, unquote, changes us. Each day we have the choice to either resist being changed or to open ourselves up to the possibilities that change brings. We're not static. Life is not static. The universe is not static. And yes, even the divine is not static. Butler solidified this concept when she wrote, "All that you touch, you change." This is a quote from the top again. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is changed. The divine is change. That's quote unquote. What the truth of this statement permeates every aspect of your being. What would it look like if we embodied this simple truth? How would we live our lives differently if we truly recognized we are both the changers and the change? And I'm really trying to think how I think about this. I mean, do I resist change? The answer is yes and no, because it's really comfortable to sit in the present and not be changed. But at the same time, there's no point, I don't think anyway, in undergoing experiences that don't allow you to experience change. For instance, lots of seminars that I've been to have been with the express purpose of changing the people who attended the seminar. And oftentimes you know this going in. You know, when I teach a class, I expect the students are going to be changed by what they hear. But I also expect myself to be changed by what I hear back from them. So in the sense that change is comfortable and it's good and all the rest of it, it isn't a growth experience. And they're quoting here about how a lot of colonists came and changed the indigenous peoples and the cultures to something that they felt comfortable with. But if you look deeply underneath, whether they liked it or not, they were also being changed by what was happening to them. They took on new concepts. New thought in general, and science of mind in particular, definitely are open to change, because Ernest Holmes and other teachers before him, such as, you know, Emma Curtis Hopkins, didn't actually just look at what they knew and what they'd been taught growing up. They didn't just look at the Judeo-Christian principles, and to a lesser extent probably Islamic. They looked beyond that at different concepts, and they allowed themselves to be changed by it. It's just the way they were. In fact, the reason why Emma Curtis Hopkins broke off with Christian Science was that she wanted to look beyond the initial ideas that were proposed by Christian Science. She brought in a lot of things that she'd read and learned of cultures which were different than European and American cultures. She looked beyond that. She went further east, and she took in a lot of Eastern concepts. Ernest Holmes did the same. In fact, New Thought, and in general, Science of Man in particular, is called a syncretic religion. And it's syncretic because it synthesizes ideas and views from all different parts of the world. So Holmes, for sure, was somebody who did embrace change, because he ended up with different concepts of the world than he started off with as a kid. And I would say that all of us who weren't brought up in New Thought, who were going to introduce to it later, have been changed, and we had to be open to change, or we wouldn't be where we are now. I have completely changed my view of the way that I look at the divine since I got involved in New Thought and Science of Mind. But do we resist change? Yes, I think to some extent we do. Do we embrace change? And I think the ones of us who are moving on that spiritual path, I think part of that spiritual path development is becoming more open to change as you go along. And are we perfect at it? No, absolutely not. But are we open to it? I think we're more open than lots of other people. And you can see that. Look out in the culture. You can see the groups of people who are just opposed to change, and the ones who are open to change and trying to change things. So, hope you like this reading. If you have comments yourselves, I really would like to hear them. I really would like to hear them, and I promise you I'll look at them. It may take me a day or two to get around to them, but I promise you I'll look at them. The affirmation: I embrace change as a natural and necessary part of life. I love this affirmation. I embrace change as a natural and necessary part of life. So what do you think about it? What's your view about change? Is it hard to change? Is it easy to change? Is it somewhere in the middle? But do you think change is necessary? I do. What I was going to do in future is I'm going to see if I can pull different readings from Ernest Holmes from where he gives us treatments, and find it, if I can find a fairly short treatment. I intend in future to end these sessions with a treatment by Ernest Holmes, because he wrote them in the first person so we could all use them. So hopefully I can find ones that align with what we're talking about at the time. So until next time, please take care of yourselves. I think some of this weather's coming back again, and I don't know, I think tomorrow we're also going to get some more of this weather. So if you're out in this area, or if you're further east where this weather's traveling to, please take care of yourselves. If you've had major issues because of this weather, please reach out to somebody, whether it's us or somebody else, and ask for help. So until next time, I just want to say, we wish you all the best. Namaste.